Start of this project, Gutenberg a book The Vision of Purgatory, Part 2. Produced by David Widger. The Vision of Hell, Purgatory and Paradise. By Dante Alighieri. Translated by the Rev. H. F. Carey. Purgatory, Part 2. Cantos 510. Canto V. Now had I left those spirits, and pursued the steps of my conductor, when beheld pointing the finger at me, one exclaimed, "See how it seems as if the light not shone from the left hand of him beneath, and he, as living, seems to be led on." Mine eyes I at that sound reverting, saw them gaze through wonder first at me, and then at me, and the light broken underneath by turns. "Why are thy thoughts thus riveted?" my guide exclaimed, "that thou hast slacked thy pace? Or how imports it thee, what thing is whispered here? Come after me, and to their babblings leave the crowd. Be as a tower, that firmly set, shakes not its top, for any blast that blows. He in whose bosom thought on thought shoots out, still of his aim is wide, in that the one sicklies and wastes, to naught the other's strength." What other could I answer save I come? I said it, somewhat with that colour tinged, which ofttimes pardon meriteth for man. Meanwhile traverse along the hill there came, a little way before us, some who sang the Miserere, in responsive strains. When they perceived that through my body I gave way not for the rays to pass, their song straight to along, and hoarse exclaimed they chonged. And two of them, in guise of messengers, ran on to meet us, and inquiring asked, "Of your condition, we would gladly learn." To them my guide, "Ye may return, and bear tidings to them who sent you, that his frame is real flesh. If as I deem, to view his shade they paused, enough is answered them. Him let them honor, they may prize him well. Near saw I fiery vapors, with such speed, cut through the serene air, at fall of night, nor August's clouds, athwart the setting sun, that upward these did not in shorter space return. And there arriving, with the rest wheel, back on us, as with loose rein, a troop. Many exclaimed the bard, are these, who throng round us? To petition thee they come. Go therefore on, and listen as thou goest. O Spirit, who goest on to blessedness, with the same limbs that clad thee at thy birth. Shouting they came, a little rest thy step. Look if thou any one amongst our tribe hast e'er beheld, that tidings of him there thou mayst report. Ah, wherefore goest thou on? Ah, wherefore tarriest thou not? We all by violence died, and to our latest hour were sinners, but then warned by light from heaven, so that repenting and forgiving, we did issue out of life, at peace with God, who with desire to see him fills our heart. Then the visages of all I scan, yet none of ye remember. But if aught that I can do may please you, gentle spirits, speak, and I will perform it, by that peace, which on the steps of guide, so excellent following from world to world intent I seek. In answer he began, "None here distrusts thy kindness, though not promised with an oath. So as the will fail not for want of power. Whence I, who sole before the others speak, entreat thee, if thou ever see that land, which lies between Romagna and the realm of Charles, that of thy courtesy thou pray those who inhabit Fano, that for me their adorations duly be put up, by which I may purge off my grievous sins. From thence I came. But the deep passages, whence issued out the blood, wherein I dwelt, upon my bosom in Antinor's land, were made, where to be more secure I thought. The author of the deed was Est's prince, who more than right could warrant, with his wrath pursued me. Had I towards Myra fled, when overtaken at Oriaco, still might I have breathed. But to the marsh I sped, and in the mire and rushes tangled there fell, and beheld my life blood float the plain. Then said another, "Ah, So may the wish that takes thee o'er the mountain be fulfilled, as thou shalt graciously give aid to mine. Of Montefeltro I, Buonconti I, Giovanna nor none else have care for me, sorrowing with these I therefore go. I thus, from Campaldino's field what force or chance drew thee, that near thy sepulchre was known? Oh, answered he, at Casentino's foot a stream there courseth, named Arciano, sprung in Apennine, above the hermit's seat. E'en where its name is cancelled, there came I, pirked in the heart, fleeing away on foot, and bloodying the plain. Here sight and speech failed me, and finishing with Mary's name I fell, and tenantless my flesh remained. I will report the truth, which thou again tell to the living. Me God's angel took, whilst he of hell exclaimed, O thou from heaven, say wherefore hast thou robbed me? Thou of him eternal portion burst, with thee away for one poor tear, that he deprives me of. But of the other rule I make. Thou knowest how in the atmosphere collects that vapor dank, returning into water, soon as it mounts where cold condenses it. That evil will, which in his intellect still follows evil, came and raised the wind and smoky mist, by virtue of the power given by his nature. Thence the valley, soon as day was spent, he covered o'er with cloud from Pritamagno to the mountain range, and stretched the sky above, so that the air impregnate changed to water. Fell the rain, and to the fosses came all that the land contained not. And as mightiest streams are wont to the great river, with such headlong sweep rushed, that naught stayed its course. My stiffened frame laid at his mouth, the fell Arciano found, and dashed it into Arno, from my breast loosening the cross, that of myself I made, when overcome with pain. He hurled me on, along the banks and bottom of his course. Then in his muddy spoils, encircling wrapped. Ah, when thou to the world shalt be returned, and rested after thy long road, so spake next the third spirit. Then remember me. I once was Pia. Siena gave me life, Maremma took it from me. That he knows, who me with jeweled ring had first espoused. Canto vi. When from their game of dice men separate he, who hath lost, remains in sadness fixed, revolving in his mind what luckless throws he cast. But meanwhile all the company go with the other. One before him runs, and one behind his mantle twitches, one fast by his side bids him remember him. He stops not, and each one to whom his hand is stretched well knows he bids him stand aside. And thus he from the press defends himself. E'en such was I, in that close crowding throng, and turning so my face around to all, and promising, I scapt from it, with pains. Here of Arezzo him I saw, who fell by Gino's cruel arm, and him beside, who in his chase, was swallowed by the stream. Here Frederick Novello, with his hand stretched forth entreated, and of Pisa he, who put the good Marzucco to such proof of constancy. Count Orso I beheld, and from its frame a soul dismissed, for spite and envy, as it said, but for no crime. I speak of Peter de la Brosse. And here, while she yet lives, that lady of Brabant, let her beware, lest for so false a deed she heard, with worse than these. When I was freed from all those spirits who prayed for others' prayers to hasten on their state of blessedness, straight I began, O thou, my luminary, it seems expressly in thy text denied that heaven's supreme decree can never bend to supplication. Yet with this design do these entreat. Can then their hope be vain, or is thy saying not to me revealed? He thus to me. Both what I write is plain, and these deceived not in their hope, if well thy mind consider, that the sacred height of judgment doth not stoop, because love's flame in a short moment all fulfills, which he who sojourns here in right should satisfy. Besides, when I this point concluded thus, by praying no defect could be supplied, because the prayer had none access to God. Yet in this deep suspicion rest, thou not contented unless she assure thee so, who betwixt truth and mind infuses light. I know not if thou take me right. I mean Beatrice. Her thou shalt behold above, upon this mountain's crown, fair seat of joy. Then I, Sir, let us mend our speed, for now I tire, not as before. And lo, the hill stretches its shadow far. He answered thus, Our progress with this day shall be as much as we may now dispatch, but otherwise than thou supposest is the truth. For there thou canst not be, ere thou once more behold him back returning, who behind the steep is now so hidden, that as erst his beam thou dost not break. But lo, a spirit there stands solitary, and toward us looks. It will instruct us in the speediest way. We soon approached it. O thou Lombard spirit! How didst thou stand, in high abstracted mood, scarce moving with slow dignity thine eyes? It spoke not aught, but let us onward pass, eyeing us as a lion on his watch. But Virgil with entreaty mild advanced, requesting it to show the best ascent. It answer to his question none returned, but of our country, and our kind of life demanded. When my courteous guide began Mantua, the solitary shadow quick rose towards us, from the place in which it stood, and cried, Mantuan, I am thy countryman Sordello. Each the other then embraced. Ah, slavish Italy! Thou inn of grief, vessel without a pilot in loud storm, lady no longer of fair provinces, but brothel house impure. This gentle spirit, even from the pleasant sound of his dear land, was prompt to greet a fellow citizen with such glad cheer. While now thy living ones in thee abide not without war, and one malicious gnaws another of those whom the same wall and the same moat contains, seek wretched one. Around thy sea coasts wide, then homeward to thy bosom turn, and mark if any part of the sweet peace and joy. What boots it, that thy reins Justinian's hand be fitted, if thy saddle be unpressed? Naught doth he now, but aggravate thy shame. Ah, people! Thou obedient still shouldst live, and in the saddle let thy Caesar sit, if well thou markedst that which God commands. Look how that beast to fellness hath relapsed, from having lost correction of the spur, since to the bridle thou hast set thine hand, O German Albert, who abandonst her that is grown savage and unmanageable, when thou shouldst clasp her flanks with forked heels. Just judgment from the stars fall on thy blood, and be it strange and manifest to all, such as may strike thy successor with dread. For that thy sire and thou have suffered thus, through greediness of yonder realms didn't the garden of the empire to run waste. Come see the Capulets and Montagues, the Filippeschi and Monaldi. Man who cursed for naught, those sunk in grief, and these with dire suspicion racked. Come, cruel one, come and behold the oppression of the nobles, and mark their injuries. And thou mayst see what safety Sante Fiore can supply. Come and behold thy Rome, who calls on thee, desolate widow, day and night with moans. My Caesar, why dost thou desert my side? Come and behold what love among thy people. And if no pity touches thee, for us come, and blush for thine own report. For me, if it be lawful, O almighty power, who waste in earth, for our sakes crucified. Are thy just eyes turned elsewhere? Or is this a preparation, in the wondrous depth of thy sage counsel made, for some good end, entirely from our reach of thought cut off? So are the Italian cities, all are thronged with tyrants, and a great Marcellus, made of every petty factious villager. My Florence, thou mayst well remain unmoved at this digression, which affects not thee. Thanks to thy people, who so wisely speed. Many have justice in their heart, that long waiteth for counsel, to direct the bow, or ere it dart unto its aim. But shine have it on their lips' edge. Many refuse to bear the common burdens. Ready are thine answer and cry, Behold I stoop. Make thyself glad, for thou hast reason now, thou wealthy, thou at peace, thou wisdom fraught. Facts best witness, if I speak the truth. Athens and Lacedaemon, who of old enacted laws, for civil arts renowned, made little progress in improving life towards thee, who usest such nice subtlety, that to the middle of November scarce reaches the thread thou in October weavest. How many times, within thy memory, customs, and laws, and coins, and offices have been by thee renewed, and people changed? If thou rememberest well, and canst see clear, thou wilt perceive thyself like a sick wretch, who finds no rest upon her down, but oft shifting her side, short respite seeks from pain. Canto VII. After their courteous greetings joyfully 7 times exchanged, Sordello backward drew exclaiming, Who are ye? Before this mount, by spirits worthy of ascent, to God was sought, my bones had by Octavius' care been buried. I am Virgil, for no sin deprived of heaven, except for lack of faith. So answered him in few, my gentle guide. As one who ought before him suddenly beholding, whence his wonder riseth, cries it is yet is not, wavering in belief. Such he appeared. Then downward bent his eyes, and drawing near with reverential step, caught him, where of mean estate, might clasp his lord. Glory of Latium! He exclaimed, in whom our tongue its utmost power displayed. Boast of my honored birthplace! What desert of mine, what favor rather undeserved, shows thee to me? If I to hear that voice am worthy, say if from below thou comest, and from what cloisters pale, through every orb of that sad region. He replied, Thus far am I rived, by heavenly influence led, and with such aid I come. There is a place there underneath, not made by torments sad, but by dun shades alone, where morning's voice sounds not of anguish sharp, but breathes in sighs. There I, with little innocence abide, who by death's fangs were bitten, ere exempt from human taint. There I with those abide, who the 3 holy virtues put not on, but understood the rest, and without blame followed them all. But if thou knowst, and canst, direct us, how we soonest may arrive, where purgatory its true beginning takes. He answered thus, We have no certain place assigned us. Upwards I may go, or round, far as I can, I join thee for thy guide. But thou beholdest now, how day declines, and upwards to proceed by night, our power excels. Therefore it may be well to choose a place of pleasant sojourn. To the right some spirits sit apart, Richard. If thou consentest, I to these will lead thy steps, and thou wilt know them, not without delight. How chances this? Was answered. Whoso wished to ascend by night, would he be thence debarred by other, or through his own weakness, fail? The good Sordello then, along the ground trailing his finger, spoke. Only this line thou shalt not overpass, soon as the sun hath disappeared. Not that aught else impedes thy going upwards, save the shades of night. These with the wont of power, perplex the will. With them thou haply mightst return beneath, or to and fro round the mountain's side wander, while day is in the horizon shut. My master straight, as wondering at his speech, exclaimed, Then lead us quickly, where thou sayest, that while we stay, we may enjoy delight. A little space, we were removed from thence, when I perceived the mountain hollowed out, even as large valleys, hollowed out on earth. That way, the escorting spirit cried, We go, where in a bosom, the high bank recedes. And thou await renewal of the day. Betwixt the steep and plain a crooked path, let us traverse, into the ridge's side, where more than half the sloping edge expires. Refulgent gold and silver thrice refined, and scarlet grain and trues, Indian wood of lucid dye serene, fresh emeralds but newly broken, by the herbs and flowers placked, in that fair recess, in colour all had been surpassed, as great surpasses less. Nor nature only there lavished her hues, but of the sweetness of 1,000 smells a rare and undistinguished fragrance made. Saw Regina on the grass, and flowers here chanting I beheld those spirits sit, who not beyond the valley could be seen. Before the westering sun sank to his bed, began the Mantuan, who our steps had turned. Mid those desires, not that I lead ye on, for from this eminence ye shall discern better the acts and visages of all, than in the nether vale, among them mixed. He, who sits high above the rest, and seems to have neglected that he should have done, and to the other's song moves not his lip, the Emperor Rodolphe call, who might have healed the wounds, whereof fair Italy hath died, so that by others she revives but slowly he, who with kindly visage comforts him, swayed in that country, where the water springs, that Moldau's river to the Elbe, and Elbe rolls to the ocean. Ottokar his name, who in his swaddling clothes was of more worth than Wenceslaus his son, a bearded man, pampered with rank luxuriousness and ease. And that one with the nose depress, who close in council seems with him, of gentle look, flying expert, withering the lily's flower. Look there how he doth knock against his breast. The other ye behold, who for his cheek makes of one hand a couch, with frequent sighs. They are the father and the father-in-law of Gallia's bane. His vicious life they know and foul. Thence comes the grief that rends them thus. He, so robust of limb, who measure keeps in song, with him of feature prominent, with every virtue bore his girdle brecht. And if that stripling, who behind him sits, king after him had lived, his virtue then from vessel to like vessel had been poured. Which may not of the other heirs be said. By James and Frederick his realms are held. Neither the better heritage obtains. Rarely into the branches of the tree doth human worth mount up. And so ordains he who bestows it, that as his free gift it may be called. To Charles my words apply no less than to his brother in the song, which Puy and Provence now with grief confess. So much that plant degenerates from its seed, as more than Beatrice and Margaret Costanza still boasts of her valorous spouse. Behold the king of simple life and plain, Harry of England, sitting there alone. He through his branches better issue spreads. That one who on the ground, beneath the rest sits lowest, yet his gaze directs aloft, us William, that brave marquis, for whose cause the deed of Alexandria, and his war makes Confederate, and Canaves weep. Canto VIII. Now was the hour that wakens fond desire in men at sea, and melts their thoughtful heart, who in the morn have bid sweet friends farewell, and pilgrim newly on his road, with love thrills, if he hear the vesper bell from far, that seems to mourn for the expiring day. When I, no longer taking heed to hear, began, with wonder, from those spirits, to mark one risen from its seat, which with its hand audience implored. Both palms it joined and raised, fixing its steadfast gaze towards the east, as telling God, I care for naught beside. Te lucis ante, so devoutly then came from its lip, and in so soft a strain, that all my sense in ravishment was lost. And the rest after, softly and devout, followed through all the hymn, with upward gaze, directed to the bright supernal wheels. Hear, reader, for the truth makes thine eyes keen, for of so subtle texture is this veil, that thou with these mayst pass it through unmarked. I saw that gentle band silently next look up, as if in expectation held, pale and in lowly guise. And from on high I saw forth issuing descend beneath two angels, with two flame-illumined swords, broken and mutilated at their points. Green as the tender leaves but newly born, their vesture was, the which by wings, as green beaten, they drew behind them, fanned in air. A little over us one took his stand, the other lighted on the opposing hill, so that the troop were in the midst contained. Well I descried the whiteness on their heads, but in their visages the dazzled eye was lost, as faculty that by too much is overpowered. From Mary's bosom both are come, exclaimed Sordello, as a guard over the veil, 'gainst him who hither tends the serpent. Whence not knowing by which path he came, I turned me round, and closely pressed, all frozen to my leader's trusted side. Sordello paused not. To the valley, now for it is time, let us descend, and hold converse with those great shadows. Haply much their sight may please ye. Only 3 steps down methinks I measured, ere I was beneath, and noted one who looked as with desire to know me. Time was now that arrow dim, yet not so dim, that twixt his eyes and mine it cleared not up what was concealed before. Mutually towards each other we advanced. Nino, thou courteous judge, what joy I felt when I perceived thou wert not with the bad. No salutation kind on either part was left unsaid. He then inquired, how long since thou arrivedst at the mountain's foot, over the distant waves? Oh, answered I, through the sad seats of woe, this morn I came, and still in my first life, thus journeying on, the other strive to gain. Soon as they heard my words, he and Sordello backward drew, as suddenly amazed. To Virgil one, the other to a spirit turned, who near was seated crying, Conrad, up with speed, come see what of his grace high God hath willed. Then turning round to me, by that rare mark of honor, which thou owest to him, who hides so deeply his first cause, it hath no ford, when thou shalt be beyond the vast of waves. Tell my Giovanna, that for me, she call there, where reply to innocence is made. Her mother, I believe, loves me no more, since she has changed the white and wimpled folds, which she is doomed once more, with grief to wish. By her, it easily may be perceived, how long in women lasts the flame of love, if sight and touch do not relume it oft. For her so fair a burial will not make the viper, which calls Milan to the field, as had been made by shrill Galura's bird. He spoke, and in his visage took the stamp of that right seal, which with due temperature glows in the bosom. My insatiate eyes meanwhile to heaven had travelled, even there where the bright stars are slowest, as a wheel nearest the axle. When my guide inquired, what there aloft, my son, has caught thy gaze? I answered, the 3 torches, with which here the pole is all on fire. He then to me, the 4 resplendent stars thou sawest this morn are there beneath, and these risen in their stead. While yet he spoke, Sordello to himself drew him, and cried, lo there our enemy, and with his hand pointed that way, to look. Along the side, where barrier none rose around the little vale, a serpent lay, such haply as gave Eve the bitter food. Between the grass and flowers, the evil snake came on, reverting oft his lifted head, and as a beast that smooths its polished coat, licking his hack. I saw not, nor can tell, how those celestial falcons from their seat moved, but in motion each one well descried, hearing the air cut by their verdant plumes. The serpent fled, and to their stations back the angels up returned, with equal flight. The spirit who to Nino, when he called, had come, from viewing me with fixed ken, through all that conflict, loosened not his sight. So may the lamp, which leads thee up on high, find in thy destined lot of wax so much, as may suffice thee to the enamel's height. It thus began. If any certain news of Valdemagra and the neighbor part thou knowst, tell me, who once was mighty, there they called me Conrad Malaspina, not that old one, but from him I sprang. The love I bore my people is now here refined. In your dominions, I answered, near was I. But through all Europe, where do those men dwell, to whom their glory is not manifest? The fame that honors your illustrious house proclaims the nobles, and proclaims the land, so that he knows it, who was never there. I swear to you, so may my upward route prosper. Your honored nation not impairs the value of her coffer and her sword. Nature and use give her such privilege, that while the world is twisted from his course by a bad head, she only walks aright, and has the evil way in scorn. He then, now pass thee on. 7 times the tired sun revisits not the couch, which with 4 feet the fork carries covers, ere that kind opinion shall be nailed into thy brain with stronger nails than others' speech can drive, if the sure course of judgment be not stayed. Canto IX. Now the fair consort of Tithonus old, arisen from her mate's beloved arms, looked pully o'er the eastern cliff. Her brow, lucent with jewels, glittered, set in sign of that chill animal, who with his train smites fearful nations. And where then we were, 2 steps of her ascent, the night had passed, and now the 3rd was closing up its wing, when I, who had so much of Adam with me, sank down upon the grass, o'ercome with sleep, there where all 5 were seated. In that hour, when near the dawn the swallow her sad lay remembering haply ancient grief, renews, and with our minds, more wanderers from the flesh, and less by thought restrained are, as 't were, full of holy divination, in their dreams, then in a vision did I seem to view a golden feathered eagle in the sky, with open wings, and hovering for descent, and I was in that place, methought, from whence young Ganymede, from his associate's raft, was snatched aloft to the high consistory. Perhaps, thought I within me, here alone he strikes his quarry, and elsewhere disdains to pounce upon the prey. Thereth it seemed, a little wheeling, in his airy tour terrible, as the lightning rushed he down, and snatched me upward even to the fire. There both I thought, the eagle and myself did burn. And so intense imagined flames, that needs my sleep was broken off. As erst Achilles shook himself, and round him rolled his weakened eyeballs wondering where he was, when as his mother had from Chiron fled to Cyrus, with him sleeping in her arms. E'en thus I shook me, soon as from my face the slumber parted, turning deadly pale, like one ice-struck with dread. So low at my side my comfort stood, and the bright sun was now more than 2 hours aloft. And to the sea my looks were turned. Fear not, my master cried, assured we are at happy point. Thy strength shrink not, but rise dilated. Thou art come to purgatory now. Lo, there the cliff that circling bounds it. Lo, the entrance there, where it doth seem disparted. Ray the dawn ushered the daylight, when thy wearied soul slept in thee, o'er the flowery vale, beneath a lady came, and thus bespake me. I am Lucia. Suffer me to take this man, who slumbers. Easier so his way shall speed. Sordello and the other gentle shapes tarrying, she bare thee up. And as day shone, this summit reached. And I pursued her steps. Here did she place thee. First her lovely eyes, that open entrance showed me. Then at once she vanished with thy sleep. Like one whose doubts are chased by certainty, and terror turned to comfort, on discovery of the truth, such was the change in me. And as my guide beheld me fearless, up along the cliff he moved, and I behind him, towards the height. Reader, thou markest how my theme doth rise, nor wonder therefore, if more artfully I prop the structure. Nearer now we drew rived, whence in that part, where first a breach, as of a wall appeared, I could descry a portal, and 3 steps beneath, that led for inlet there, of different color each, and one who watched, but spake not yet a word. As more and more mine eye did stretch its view, I marked him seated on the highest step, in visage such as passed my power to bear. Grasped in his hand a naked sword, glanced back the rays so toward me, that I oft in vain my sight directed. Speak from whence ye stand, he cried. What would ye? Where is your escort? Take heed your coming upward harm ye not. A heavenly dame, not skilless of these things, replied the instructor, told us, even now pass that way. Here the gate is, and may she befriending prosper your ascent, resumed the courteous keeper of the gate. Come then before our steps. We straightway thither came. The lowest stair was marble white, so smooth and polished, that therein my mirrored form distinct I saw. The next of hue more dark than sablest grain, a rough and singed block, cracked lengthwise and across. The third, that lay massy above, seemed porphyry, that flamed red as the life blood spouting from a vein. On this God's angel, either foot sustained, upon the threshold seated, which appeared a rock of diamond. Up the trinal steps my leader cheerily drew me. Ask, said he, with humble heart, that he unbar the bolt. Piously at his holy feet devolved I, cast me, praying him for pity's sake, that he would open to me. But first fell thrice on my bosom prostrate. 7 times the letter that denotes the inward stain, he on my forehead, with the blunted point of his drawn sword inscribed. And look, he cried, when entered, that thou wash these scars away. Ashes, or earthed and dry, out of the ground, were of one color, with the robe he wore. From underneath that vestment forth, he drew 2 keys of metal twain. The one was gold, its fellow silver. With the pallid first, and next the burnished, he so plied the gate, as to content me well. Whenever one faileth of these, that in the keyhole straight, it turn not, to this alley then expect access, in vain. Such were the words he spake. One is more precious, but the other needs skill and sagacity, large share of each, ere its good task, to disengage the knot be worthily performed. From Peter these I hold, of him instructed, that I err rather in opening, than in keeping fast. So but the suppliant at my feet implore. Then of that hallowed gate, he thrust the door, exclaiming enter, but this warning hear. He forth again departs who looks behind. As in the hinges of that sacred ward, the swivels turned, sonorous metal strong, harsh was the grating. Nor so surlily roared the Tarpeian, when by force bereft of good Metellus, thenceforth from his lost Tolenus doomed. Attentively I turned, listening the thunder, that first issued forth. And we praise thee, O God, methought I, heard in accents blended with sweet melody. The strains came o'er mine ear, e'en as the sound of choral voices, that in solemn chant, with organ mingle, and now high and clear, come swelling, now float indistinct away. Canto X. When we had passed the threshold of the gate which the soul's ill affection doth disuse, making the crooked seem the straighter path, I heard its closing sound. Had mine eyes turned, for that offense what plea might have availed. We mounted up the riven rock, that wound on either side alternate, as the wave flies, and advances. Here some little art behooves us, said my leader, that our steps observe the varying flexure of the path. Thus we so slowly sped, that with cleft orb, the moon once more o'erhangs her watery couch, ere we that strait have threaded. But when free we came and open, where the mount above one solid mass retires, I spent, with toil, and both uncertain of the way, we stood upon a plain more lonesome than the roads that traverse desert wilds. From whence the brink borders upon vacuity, to foot of the steep bank, that rises still, the space had measured thrice the stature of a man. And distant as mine eye could wing its flight, to leftward now, and now to right dispatched, that cornice equal in extent appeared. Not yet our feet had on that summit moved, when I discovered that the bank around, whose proud uprising all ascent denied, was marble white, and so exactly wrought with quaintest sculpture, that not there alone had Polycletus, but in nature's self, been shammed. The angel who came down to earth, with tidings of the peace so many years, wept for in vain, that opt the heavenly gates, from their long interdict, before us seemed, in a sweet act, so sculptured to the life, he looked no silent image. One had sworn he had said, Hail! For she was immortalized there, by whom the key did open to God's love, and in her act as sensibly impress that word, Behold the handmaid of the Lord, as figure sealed on wax. Fix not thy mind on one place only, said the guide beloved, who had me near him, on that part where lies the heart of man. My sight forthwith I turned, and marked, behind the Virgin Mother's form, upon that side, where he that moved me stood, another story graven on the rock. I passed athwart the bard, and drew me near, that it might stand more aptly for my view. There in the self-same marble were engraved the card and kine, drawing the sacred ark, that from unbidden office awes mankind. Before it came much people, and the whole parted in 7 choirs. One sense cried, nay, another yes, they sing. Like doubterous betwixt the eye and smell, from the curled fume of incense, breathing up the well-wrought oil. Preceding the blessed vessel, onward came with light dance leaping, girt in humble guise, sweet Israel's harper. In that hap he seemed less, and yet more than kingly. Opposite, at a great palace, from the lattice forth looked Michal, like a lady full of scorn and sorrow. To behold the tablet next, which at the hack of Michal whitely shone, I moved me. There was storied on the rock, the exalted glory of the Roman prince, whose mighty worth moved Gregory, to earn his mighty conquest, Trajan th emperor. A widow at his bridal stood, uttered in tears and mourning. Round about them trooped full throng of knights, and overhead in gold the eagles floated, struggling with the wind. The wretch appeared, amid all these to say, Grant vengeance, sire. For woe beshrew this heart, my son is murdered. He replying seemed, Wait now till I return. And she, as one made hasty, by her grief. O sire, if thou dost not return, where I am, who then is, may right thee. What to thee is others' good, if thou neglect thy own, now comfort thee. At length he answers. It beseemeth well my duty be performed, ere I move hence. So justice wills, and pity bids me stay. He, whose ken nothing new surveys, predict that visible speaking, new to us, and strange the like not found on earth. Fondly I gazed upon those patterns of meek humbleness, shapes yet more precious, for their artist's sake, when lo, the poet whispered, Where this way but slack their pace, a multitude advance. These to the lofty steps shall guide us on. Mine eyes, though bent on view of novel sights, their loved allurement, were not slow to turn. Reader, would not that amazed thou miss, of thy good purpose, hearing how just God decrees our debts be cancelled? Ponder not the form of suffering. Think on what succeeds. Think that at worst beyond the mighty doom it cannot pass. Instructor, I began, what I see hither tending bears no trace of human semblance, nor of aught beside that my foiled sight can guess. He answering thus, so curbed to earth, beneath their heavy teams of torment, stoop they, that mine eye at first struggled as thine. But look intently thither, and disentangle with thy lumbering view, what underneath those stones approacheth. Now mayst thou discern the pangs of each. Christians and proud, poor and wretched ones, that feeble in the mind's eye, lean your trust upon unstayed perverseness. Know ye not that we are worms, yet made at last, to form the winged insect, imped with angel plumes that to heaven's justice unobstructed soars? Why buoy ye up aloft, your unfilliged souls? Abortive then and shapeless ye remain, like the untimely embryon of a worm. As to support incumbent floor or roof, for corbel is a figure sometimes seen, that crumples up its knees unto its breast, with the feigned posture stirring ruth and feigned in the beholder's fancy. So I saw these fashioned, when I noted well their guise. Each as his back was laden, came indeed or more or less contract. But it appeared as he, who showed most patience in his look, wailing exclaimed, I can endure no more. End of Project Gutenberg's The Vision of Purgatory, Part 2, by Dante Alighieri, translated by the Rev. H. F. Carey, illustrated by Gustave Dor. End of this Project Gutenberg book The Vision of Purgatory, Part 2. My guide exclaimed, that thou hast slacked thy pace. Or how imports it thee? What thing is whispered here? Come after me, and to their babblings leave the crowd. Be as a tower, that firmly set, shakes not its top, for any blast that blows. He in whose bosom thought on thought shoots out, still of his aim is wide, in that the one sicklies and wastes, to naught the other's strength. What other could I answer save I come? I said it, somewhat with that colour tinged, which oft times pardon meriteth for man. Meanwhile traverse along the hill there came, a little way before us, some who sang the Miserere, in responsive strains. When they perceived that through my body I gave way not for the race to pass, their song straight to along, and start of this project, Gutenberg book The Vision of Purgatory, Part 2. Produced by David Widger. The Vision of Hell, Purgatory and Paradise, by Dante Alighieri, translated by the Rev. H. F. Carey. Purgatory, Part 2, Cantos 510, Canto V. Now had I left those spirits, and pursued the steps of my conductor, when beheld pointing the finger at me, one exclaimed, See how it seems as if the light not shone from the left hand of him beneath, and he, as living, seems to be led on. Mine eyes I at that sound reverting, saw them gaze through wonder first at me, and then at me, and the light broken underneath by turns. Why are thy thoughts thus riveted for on, and listen as thou goest? O Spirit, who goest on to blessedness, with the same limbs that clad thee at thy birth. Shouting they came, a little rest thy step. Look if thou any one amongst our tribe hast e'er beheld, that tidings of him there thou mayst report. Ah, wherefore goest thou on? Ah, wherefore tarriest thou not? We all by violence died, and to our latest hour were sinners, but then warned by light from heaven, so that repenting and forgiving, we did issue out of life, at peace with God, who with desire to see him fills our heart. Then the visages of all I scan, yet none of ye remember. But if aught that I can do may please you, gentle spirits, speak. And I will perform it, by that peace, which on the steps of guide, so excellent following from world to world intent I seek. In answer he began, None here distrusts thy kindness, though not promised with an oath. So as the will fail not for want of power. Whence I, whose soul before the others speak, entreat thee, if thou ever see that land, which lies between Romagna and the realm of Charles, that of thy courtesy thou pray those, who inhabit Fano, that for me, their adorations duly be put up, by which I may purge off my grievous sins. From thence I came. But the deep passages, whence issued out the blood, wherein I dwelt, upon my bosom in Antinor's land, were made, where to be more secure I thought, and hoarse exclaimed they chonged. And two of them, in guise of messengers, ran on to meet us, and inquiring asked, Of your condition, we would gladly learn. To them my guide, Ye may return, and bear tidings to them, who sent you, that his frame is real flesh. If as I deem, to view his shade they paused, enough is answered them. Him let them honor, they may prize him well. Near saw I fiery vapors, with such speed, cut through the serene air, at fall of night, nor August's clouds, athwart the setting sun, that upward these did not in shorter space return. And there arriving, with the rest wheel, back on us, as with loose rein, a troop. Many exclaimed the bard, are these, who throng round us? To petition thee they come. Go there.